Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Kathmandu Post analysis. This is the date, and today we are going to discuss two major topics of this newspaper. First would relatively be from the news column, and second would be from the opinion column. And this one would be our first topic rather. Nepal is nowhere close to ending tuberculosis. It is saying like this. World Health Organization says throughout the world more than a crore people are getting infected per year by tuberculosis, commonly known as TB. Every year more than a crore people are getting infected by this disease, by this bacteria, and among those infected more than 15 lakhs are dying per year. So think the intensity of this bacteria or the intensity of this disease. And Nepal is not left somewhere else. Nepal is also falls under this alarming situation. Look at this one. More than 44 people are dying per day in Nepal by tuberculosis, and more than 184 people are getting infected by TB. So what is TB and why it is so contagious and why we should be having caution about it? Tuberculosis is a disease caused by a bacteria that is known as Mycobacterium tuberculosis. This is the name of the bacteria, Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It generally infects or affects our lungs. Firstly, it affects our lungs, and thereby it starts reducing our immunity system, immunity power, and thereafter we start to means we cough continuously, persistently for weeks altogether. And we all know while coughing our immunity system power decreases, and when it decreases our spinal cord could not able to lead us, could not able to serve our body properly, and thereby it infects our kidney failures, lungs failures, respiratory system would be deteriorated, and it makes a person unable to exhale or inhale. So this is why it is very concerning. Back in 90s, this disease started getting eradication process. The government of Nepal back in 90s itself started to prevent tuberculosis and started sending so many paramedics into the village throughout the country, and they started campaigning about tuberculosis. They started spreading awareness about tuberculosis. But what happens? Still today more than 44 people are dying. It persists till today. It still lingers in our society, in our country, and that is a very concerning or discerning news. Let me tell you, Nepal has made a pledge that Nepal will become a free TB country, a free tuberculosis country by 2050. And according to this news, according to this article, Nepal is not going to achieve that record. Nepal will unlikely to become a free of tuberculosis country by 2050, because the government is not able to point the real problem, point out the real problem. The government is not able to. Let me tell you, first of all, the government of Nepal does not possess any credible data about any of its citizens. Nepal does not know, the government of Nepal does not know how many its own people are suffering from cancer, suffering from other chronic disease, or it doesn't know how many people of Nepal are literate or illiterate, how many people are uh, serving their life below poverty line, how many people are rich, how many people are middle class or comes under middle class, and it also doesn't know how many people are having homes, lands, and how many of them are having nothing. Based on some uh, based on some sporadic researches, based on some, Nepal government will send one or two uh, team, and that team will go to a village, and that village would be investigated, means it would be properly thoroughly uh, means there everything would be there only. That means the the authorities only takes the information from that village only, and based on that village it creates an assumption, it calculates, and after multiple calculation, multiple adds, subtracts, multiply, divide, and then it releases a data that these many peoples are having cancer, these many people are having proper health condition, and these many people are having nothing as terms of assets. So this is the data government of Nepal sought, and this is very disheartening. Nepal government relies on the data of World Health Organization, United Nations, and other such organizations, which is very which is very chief situation. Look, if I do not know how many people of my house, how many people of my family, or how many members of my family is hungry, how can I make food? If I know means four people are hungry from my family, or four people are hungry of my family, then only I could prepare food, I could make food for four people. If I do not know how many of them are hungry, I could either make food for everybody, and if others are not means so many people are not hungry, then my food will be wasted, means I would have to throw that into the garbage. And this is the first situation, and second situation would be, I could prepare for myself only, I would leave for others to prepare themselves. If they are hungry, they would prepare themselves. So if I do not know how many members of my family are hungry, how could I prepare food? How could I know who one is who is going to suffer from this problem, who is going to uh, live hungry today, uh, who is going for work, who is not going for work? So there must be a proper data, and based on that data, government should envisage, or government should carry out proper strategies, and based on that strategies, all the authorities and officials of the government could treat the people equally and equivalently. So first of all, data is needed, and data does not need so many financial burden. It doesn't pose so many financial burden as voter ID card does. Making a voter ID card, government funds so much. Government provides so much of funds, allocates uh, so much of funds from its treasury for election purpose, but it doesn't have funds for creating or knowing the data, knowing about its own citizens, knowing about its own uh, forests, forests, animals, and socio-economics of this country. So that is a thing. Now let me also tell you something about this. Here, if you read this article, you can grab a very great knowledge. 16,000 people are killed or murdered, I would say, by whom? By the officials, by the authorities, because they do not carry out any uh, proper strategy to curb or to prevent tuberculosis. And remind you, this tuberculosis is a preventable disease. It can be prevented if a person is treated thoroughly for almost a year. He could come out from this disease, he could come out from that situation. Okay, but the citizens of this nation also know that government is doing its whatever it could do. Government is doing, but some of the patients, what they do is, while taking medicines, while remaining in medication process, in between, in the period of this medication process, they live from that they live from that situation. They live taking medicines, they do not take medicines further, they do not obey the instruction of the doctors. So this is the situation. And thereafter, once it is, let me tell you, if a person is getting treatment, and he is getting continuously treatment for 4 months or 5 months, and after 5 months if he lives having any medicines or getting diagnosed by the doctors, then he could become he could remain in a more serious condition. He could enter into a more serious condition than that. Doctors could also uh, uh, doctor could not also find out about this, because there is a drug resistant tuberculosis. If you are taking drugs for 4 or 5 months, and in between you leave from that situation, you do not obey the instructions of the doctors, then your tuberculosis will be a drug resistance tuberculosis. You will enter into a final stage of tuberculosis. And there, if you reach that portion, if you reach that situation, you would likely to die, because drug resistance tuberculosis is a very alarming tuberculosis, is a very alarming situation. Doctor could not do anything uh, perfectly in that situation, because sometimes you are having medicines, sometimes you are not having medicines. Your 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 bacteria, your this tuberculosis or this bacterium could generate its immunity power. It could manage its immunity power to resist the medicines or resist the drugs. So citizens would also comply with the instructions of the doctors, and must not do anything without consulting with the doctors. Okay, so this is for the citizens to follow. And now, tuberculosis is a very dangerous situation, a very dangerous or contagious disease. As I already told you, it can spread, it can affect throughout the community, it can affect all the communities within a week itself. If a person in a village is affected by tuberculosis, and he is roaming all along the village, day in and day out, then all the villagers who would come in the close proximity of this person would be infected, that's for sure. And there is, so this, that's why it is very contagious. And what the government can do, people are not getting into hospitals, because they are, there is a kind of stigma as well. If a person is having tuberculosis, he may face a kind of isolated situation. He may see a, a kind of stigma, or people would uh, people would always neglect him, and try to not get into his proximity, right? So that's a stigma situation. And that's why if a person is affected also, if a person is affected, then also he is not going to go through the hospitals and go through the doctor's advices because of the stigma. So this is what the tuberculosis of Nepal, and this is the situation of tuberculosis. Look at this: 67,000 people are infected across Nepal per year, and some of the other, here you can see Nepal has pledged that it will bring a free tuberculosis system or free tuberculosis environment in Nepal, which is unlikely to be possible. And look at this. It says, which I have circled, it says that if government is trying to prevent or curb the spread of the tuberculosis, then by 2020 2035 there must be 10% only among 1 lakh, only 10% would be infected by the tuberculosis. and and if it is trying to prevent tuberculosis or eliminate tuberculosis it's entirely, then by 2050 there would be only one person among 110 lakh who is infected by tuberculosis. Only one person is infected by tuberculosis among 10 lakh, then only it can be possible to make Nepal a tuberculosis or TB free country. So I recommend you to read this article, which is a uh, very important. Look here, 50 85 years ago, since for 85 before 85 years ago, Nepal has started its first preventive actions regarding tuberculosis, and still it is persistence in our society. Now let's move on to the second topic, that is uh, this one. In opinion column, a writer, I do not know the name of the writer, has a writer has written about Nagrik app. This article is important to understand, but it is not so important to anyhow understand it. Look, Nepal has a kind of system where government officials, banks, and all other authorities or all other corporation organization needs physical verification. Still today, Miss, still today, all the banks, almost 80% banks are demanding physical photocopy or physical identity paper or physical card to verify a person whether he is Nepali or not, or whether he is having the credential to open bank account or not, so on and so forth. So, what is the use of Nagrik app? There is an app, you might be knowing about Nagrik app. I hope so. There is an app called Nagrik app. That app has a kind of system in which almost all the official documents such as citizenship, voter ID card, national ID card, passport, driving license, so on and so forth, are stored in one single Nagrik app. All these documents can be stored, and this is a real-time verification. Okay. In Kathmandu, if you come to Kathmandu and ride motorcycles, you can see, or you can come under the surveillance of the police or traffic police, and traffic police will check your driving license, and if you have Nagrik app in your mobile phone, and if you are showing your driving license through your mobile phone, there would be a QR code. That QR code uh, means directs that traffic police into the government portals, and then you are verified. Means this is the ongoing phenomenon in Kathmandu, but it is not working in village areas or any other countryside areas. In Kathmandu and some other cities it is working, but this writer is desperate about, or he is concerned, means he is writing about bank. In the banking process, physical verification is needed, physical copy is needed, photocopies. If you have photocopy and along with your original identity, then only you are going to get your work done there, and in other government officials as well. So what is the use of Nagrik app, and why the government officials and government organizations are not relying uh, on the digital platforms? So some officials said, some critics argued that if we are going to rely on the digital systems, there would be leakage, there would be fraudulent, means fraud would go, fraud would come, and people would not, people would, there would may be discrepancies, there may be some hacks and things like that. And if physical copy is provided, then government can, officials can verify it in the real time. So according to the critics, this is their statement, and according to the supporters, they say along, means all over the world, digitalization process is massively going on. It is in the rapid process. In India, in other countries, digital process is making a huge result. It is providing government officials and other sectors a very profitable and a cordial condition to work. So why we are not accepting it? Look, there is a party, there is a there is a party which has come into power, that is RASPA, Rashtriya Swatantra Party, and in its manifesto it has said that Nepal would be a digital country. Means this is the agenda, this is the vision of RASPA. So this writer is saying that if RASPA would work first work first work with first work on Nagrik app and makes it legitimate for all the organization, then this would be a good start for digital process of digitalizing Nepal. First, make a Nagrik app as a so-called a real-time verification certificate or verification app, and which a person is, if a person is showing his identity through Nagrik app, then he must be getting his work done in any government offices or any banks in the country. So this is the thing. Let me tell you about beyond this article. In India, government of India started making Aadhaar card a decades ago or more than that. At that time, uh, there are so many scientists. There are so many scientists in India, but they said, they told the government that if you are doing this, if you are getting everybody digitized, and then only it is very necessary. Then only it is very convenient to rule almost 1.5 billion people. But in Nepal only 3 crores are here, and government is not able to uh, you know government is not able to rule only 3 crore, because it does not provide legitimacy to any electronic gadgets or any electronic systems. Means IT systems is very necessary to Technology is something which has made the world to move forward, bring about the changes. It has it has brought about AI and so on. And if we are not going to invest in technology, if we are languishing with our traditional method of verification, and if we are relying on it, then we are not going to become uh, a developed country anytime soon. So, to becoming a developed country, or to becoming at least a better performing country, it is very important to invest in digital process and make the country digitized, and rely on the digital platforms like Nagrik app and any other credible applications, or any other credible websites, right? As we know, Nepal has seen a massive protest, churn in its politics, right? Because of the Gen Z protest. Why it was done? It was done because of government neglected or overlooked the technology sector. It started banning Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, so on, and that's why Gen Z started protesting against the government, and suddenly there was a kind of earthquake. Parliament was burned, set on fire. So the Supreme Court was set on fire. The executive bodies, the executive offices were set on fire. So this is the thing. So government must uh, do anything possible for digitizing the nation, and make either be it Nagrik app or be it some other app, make a legitimacy, provide a legitimacy to those applications from which a person is going to get verification, his identity verification. And because carrying carrying ID certificates, carrying citizenship certificates, national card certificates is very unlikely to be possible in this modern era, because people does not have so much of time. They have to work, they have to study, along with working they have to go do some other things as well. So that's all. And today we discussed two major topics, right? And in coming future we will discuss, and our discussions will be furthermore, we will go furthermore, and we will dive more deep into the topics. So thanks for being here, thanks for watching, and bye.